Welcome, everyone. I'm excited to have you here today. Today, we're exploring changes around us. This is our first slide, setting the stage for what's to come. We'll look at how our environment, technology, and daily life are evolving. In the next few minutes, I'll guide you through some interesting insights and trends. Let's get started. Let's take a look at the contents of this chapter. We'll start with Chapter 6, which focuses on slow and fast changes. A change, in simple terms, is an act or process through which something becomes different from what it was before. This can happen in many ways and at different speeds. We'll explore different types of changes, including reversible and irreversible changes. Reversible changes are those that can be undone, like melting ice into water and then freezing it back into ice. On the other hand, irreversible changes cannot be undone, such as burning paper or baking a cake. We'll also discuss natural changes, which happen in nature, and man-made changes, which are caused by human activities. Changes can be periodic, like the changing seasons, or non-periodic, like a sudden rainfall or a volcanic eruption. Furthermore, we'll look at the conditions that favor or promote these changes, helping us understand why and when they occur. Lastly, we'll explore some interesting facts about changes that make the topic more engaging and relatable to our everyday experiences. Throughout this chapter, we'll see how these different types of changes fit into the larger theme of understanding the world around us and how things evolve over time. Let's move on to Chapter 6, which is a crucial part of our discussion. In this chapter, we're going to delve into some key concepts that build on what we've covered so far. This section really ties together the overall theme of the presentation, highlighting how these ideas connect to the bigger picture. We'll explore the main points thoroughly, but in a way that's easy to understand and relate to. The goal here is to ensure you see how this chapter fits into the broader narrative and why it's important for our overall understanding. So, let's get into the details and see what insights Chapter 6 has for us. A change is an act or process through which something becomes different. Today, we'll explore what this really means in the context of nature. Our learning objectives include understanding the various changes that happen around us, both in nature and in everyday life. We'll look at reversible and irreversible changes, what makes some changes temporary and others permanent. It's also important to understand why changes occur in the first place, what causes them. We'll examine different conditions that promote these changes, like temperature, pressure, or even the presence of certain substances. Additionally, we'll try to find the causes behind various changes, helping us see the connections in nature. Lastly, we'll learn how to categorize these changes, which will give us a clearer picture of the natural processes at work. All of this ties into our overall theme of understanding the dynamic world around us and how everything is constantly changing. So why do changes happen? Well, every change has a cause behind it. These causes are what lead to the different changes we see around us, whether it's in shape, position, color, or even the state of something. For instance, think about the rotation of the Earth. It's what causes day and night. This example helps us see how a cause results in a noticeable change. Understanding these causes is important because it helps us see the connection between what triggers a change and the change itself. This idea ties into the bigger picture of how things in the universe are constantly influenced by various forces and causes. Let's take a closer look at how changes can be classified. First, we have slow and fast changes. Slow changes happen gradually over time, like the growth of a plant, while fast changes occur quickly, such as a sudden ripening of fruit. Recognizing these helps us understand the pace at which different processes occur. Next are periodic and non-periodic changes. Periodic changes happen at regular intervals, like seasons changing each year, whereas non-periodic changes are irregular and unpredictable, like a sudden storm. This distinction is important when studying natural phenomena. Then we have reversible and irreversible changes. Reversible changes can be undone, like melting ice turning back into water when cooled. Irreversible changes, on the other hand, cannot be undone, like burning paper. Once burned, it can't be turned back into paper. Moving on, physical and chemical changes are fundamental concepts. Physical changes alter the form or appearance without changing the substance itself, such as chopping wood. Chemical changes, however, involve a new substance being formed, like rust forming on iron. Finally, we consider natural and man-made changes. Natural changes occur due to natural forces, like erosion or weathering. Man-made changes result from human activities, such as construction or pollution. Understanding these classifications helps us see the different ways changes happen and their impact, which ties back to our overall theme of understanding the nature of change in our environment and daily life. Now let's talk about slow and fast changes. Slow changes are those that happen gradually over a long period of time. For example, rusting of iron, the formation of day and night, ripening of fruits, and the growth of trees. These changes take a lot of time, so we usually don't notice them happening day to day. On the other hand, fast changes occur quickly, within a short period of time. Think about burning a piece of paper, stretching a rubber band, blowing up a balloon, or bursting crackers. These are all examples of rapid changes that happen almost instantly. The key point here is that slow changes are gradual and take a long time, while fast changes happen suddenly and quickly. Recognizing these differences helps us understand how different processes and phenomena around us occur over varying time frames. Now let's talk about the changes we see around us, which can be categorized into two main types: natural changes and man-made changes. Natural changes are those that happen due to nature itself. These are not controlled or influenced by humans, like the changing seasons, the flow of rivers, or volcanic eruptions. They occur naturally over time and are part of the Earth's ongoing processes. On the other hand, man-made changes are those brought about by human activity. These are under our control, whether we're building roads, planting forests, or developing cities. Human actions can accelerate, slow down, or alter natural processes, which makes understanding these differences very important when we think about how our environment evolves. Connecting this to our overall theme, recognizing the difference between natural and man-made changes helps us make better decisions about how we interact with and protect our environment. It's about understanding what's natural and what's influenced by us so we can work towards sustainable living. Let's talk about periodic and non-periodic changes. Periodic changes are those that happen at regular, predictable intervals. For example, think about the phases of the moon. They follow a cycle. Or consider sunrise and sunset. They occur at specific times each day. Even the ringing of a pendulum is a perfect example of a periodic change because it repeats in a consistent pattern. On the other hand, non-periodic changes are irregular and unpredictable. These are events that don't follow a set pattern or schedule. For instance, earthquakes happen suddenly and without warning. The same goes for accidents or floods. They occur unexpectedly and are not tied to a regular cycle. Understanding the difference between these two types of changes helps us better analyze natural phenomena and their patterns, which is a key part of understanding the world around us. Now, let's talk about the differences between physical and chemical changes. A physical change happens when a substance changes its physical properties, but it's still the same substance at the core. For example, when wax melts, it changes from solid to liquid, but it's still wax. Similarly, breaking a sandcastle changes its shape, but the sand remains sand. The key idea here is that the substance's identity stays the same during a physical change. On the other hand, a chemical change involves a real transformation in the substance's chemical properties. This means the original material is changed into something new. For example, rusting of iron is a chemical change because iron reacts with oxygen to form rust, which is a different substance. Another example is dissolving sugar in water. While it might look like the sugar disappears, it's actually a chemical process where new interactions happen at the molecular level. Understanding these differences helps us see how matter behaves in everyday life, which ties back to our overall theme of exploring the nature of matter and its transformations. Recognizing whether a change is physical or chemical can help us predict what might happen next or how to manage these changes effectively. Now, let's talk about reversible changes. Any change that can be reversed simply by removing the cause is called a reversible change. Essentially, this means that the material or substance can go back to its original state without any permanent alteration. For example, when you melt ice into water and then freeze it again, you're experiencing a reversible change. The key point here is that reversible changes are temporary and can be undone easily. This concept is important because it helps us understand which changes are temporary and which ones are permanent, fitting into the broader theme of understanding different types of changes in matter. Now, let's talk about what we call an irreversible change. This is when a change happens that simply cannot be undone. Once it occurs, you can't go back to how things were before. For example, think about burning paper. Once it's burned, you can't turn it back into the original sheet of paper. The key point here is that irreversible changes are permanent. They often involve a significant transformation, like a chemical change, which fundamentally alters the substance. Recognizing these changes helps us understand the importance of careful handling of materials and processes. This concept ties into the overall theme of understanding how different changes affect materials and why some are permanent while others can be reversed. Now, let's look at the conditions that favor a change in substances. First, we have the interaction between substances. When two substances come into contact, they can react more easily if the conditions are right. This interaction can lead to new compounds forming or existing ones breaking down. Next is the mixing of substances. Proper mixing ensures that particles are evenly distributed, which increases the likelihood of particles colliding with enough energy to cause a reaction. Think of it as stirring a pot to get all the flavors blended. Mixing promotes a uniform environment for change. Finally, heating of substances plays a crucial role. When we heat a substance, we supply energy that can help overcome activation barriers, making reactions happen faster or more completely. Heating is often used to accelerate reactions and push systems toward change more efficiently. Altogether, these conditions, interaction, mixing, and heating, are key factors that influence whether and how a substance will undergo a transformation. Understanding these helps us control chemical reactions in practical applications, from industrial processes to everyday chemistry. Let's take a moment to look at some fascinating facts about our planet. Did you know that the Eiffel Tower can actually be about 15 centimeters taller during the summer? That's because the metal expands when it gets warmer, causing it to stretch slightly. It's a great example of how natural phenomena can affect man-made structures. Moving on to Mount Everest, the highest peak in the world, it's actually growing taller by about an inch every year. This is due to the ongoing tectonic activity in that region, which continuously pushes the mountain upward. And here's another interesting one. Hawaii is slowly drifting closer to Alaska by roughly 7.5 centimeters each year. This movement is caused by the shifting of Earth's tectonic plates beneath the ocean. All these facts highlight how dynamic our Earth really is, constantly changing, sometimes subtly, sometimes more noticeably. It ties back to the overall theme of this presentation, showing that our planet is alive and always in motion.